Hello and welcome to The Hero Spouse. I'm Kenda Ruth, here to answer your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. I am going to try to end at about 3:45 today instead of going all the way to 4 so that I can go to the bus to get the kids because Chuck isn't feeling well. So if I'm still talking and not noticing the time, somebody say something so that I can get out there and get the kids, because then I have to get in the car and rush off to Jeremiah, who has an extracurricular activity that I have to pick him up for or pick him up from at school. So let's get going. I'm going live in 3 places today. I am going live on YouTube, in a private group on Facebook. If you are in the private group, your comments are safe. Only others in the group can see them. But if you are in the public Facebook page, your comments are public, and often your friends might even be notified of your comments. So first I'm going to go put a comment in both Facebook pages so that you can know which group you are in. And then we'll get started. We have a lot of questions today, so I'm not going to get through all of them. I will just do some single answers and put them out as videos during the week, or we'll catch up with them next week. And I might end up needing to shorten regularly so that I can go get Jeremiah, as well as I might move our time back a half an hour. We'll just see what happens. And that might be a regular time change. Okay, so public Facebook page. Let me go over there and refresh my screen. Okay, good, coming in fine. And comments are on there. Oh wait, of course I just put the wrong comment. I put that on the private group. I was thinking the private group, but I used the word public, so let me delete that. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Here we go. Okay, let me grab the other one. At least you think it's funny too. Okay. Here we go. Okay. And we will get started. So the first thing I was going to say is that I received one very basic question from last week, being, or at the end after our session last week, but it came in last Thursday, being, how can you tell when they're in MLC? And so instead of answering that one today, it's a general question. I don't even need to know the specifics of anyone's situation. I think that I will try and put out a regular video on that that's a little bit longer, that's not meant directed to an individual, and maybe I can put it out on, I don't know that I'll put it on the blog, but if I put it out on my webpage and link it all up, it'll just be smooth as though it's another article out there. And so we'll see what I can do. In fact, I haven't ever, the main platform I use now is different than some of the other platforms, but I try and sync them all together so you guys can't tell that there's actually 3 different places that I'm hosted. And so if I put it at the new one, that might be exciting because it'll be the first time I've done that, because I can host videos there because that's where my course is hosted. So let's go on. Today we have Jay, a female left behind spouse. Her bomb drop was just this past December of 2021. And she's not yet familiar with the contact type and energy level terms. So she says, my husband is aware of this wall of fog. He will communicate with me, but it's me who starts the conversation. He has not had an affair. We both worked from home and did everything together. He's depressed now, not wanting to be around anyone except our kids. What stage is he in, and could I see a faster outcome since he has bypassed the affair stage? This is an important one to answer, and I'm really sorry, but I don't know that you're going to like the answer. So first thing, in the beginning, they're often aware of the wall of fog, and this is the absolute beginning. It's been barely over a month. And so you might see a lot of communication with you in the beginning. You also might see that he hasn't had an affair or hasn't had an affair. You don't like this part yet. MLC is depression. So he's going to be depressed now. So that's standard for what we're seeing. And if you can tell he's depressed, he may be a low energy wallower. That is where we can tell they're depressed. That's really what it means. But in the beginning of midlife crisis, we can't quite tell what he's going to settle into. Your biggest question is, first, what stage is he in? If you go to the main homepage of my website, I have a series of a few questions, and they're just FAQs that people ask. And one of them, I don't mean to be snarky when I answer it, but the first question is, what stage is my husband in? Or what stage is my spouse in, since many of you are men with female spouses? Well, the answer is, let me go down and see. I know the answer, but so here's what I say. I say, if your bomb drop was yesterday, your MLCer is escape and avoid. If your bomb drop was 6 months ago, your MLCer is an escape and avoid. If your bomb drop was 12 months ago, your MLCer is an escape and avoid. Follow the pattern. And I do that with 18 months ago. And then when I get to 2 years, I say probably an escape and avoid. So if you just had a bomb drop, I don't even need to know anything about your situation. Your MLCer is an escape and avoid. Now you'll hear people calling that replay. Jim Conway created the term replay for that stage. And instead of using the term replay for that, I use the term replay for a type of escape and avoider, a low energy wallower or a high energy replayer. And I get mixed up since for years before I, created terms to use for myself. I called it replay as well. So we call them replayers and we say they're in replay. But if you really want to know what replay means, then escape and avoid. Because we all know what it doesn't need a long definition for you to know the word escape and what the word avoid means. And that's what he is in. And he will be in there, as you can see from the answers that I gave on my FAQ piece, for a few years, at least. Because notice, at 2 years, I say probably in escape and avoid. Meaning he might not be, but odds are at 2 years, which means the odds are 6 months later, they're probably still there or moving beyond. But we see some that are there 3 years on, 4 years on. It just depends. But for those first few years, escape and avoid. Now, there is not an affair stage. There might be a stage where they're likely to have an affair or more likely for the affair to be active, but there is not an affair stage. MLCers have affairs. Now, of course, not all of them do, but the majority of MLCers have affairs. And when I say affairs, I don't just mean the emotionally bonded kind. The majority of MLCers have physical affairs. The majority of those physical affairs are of the emotionally bonded kind. Not emotional affair, but emotional bonded, limerent affair. The one where they feel the infatuation. They feel an emotional bond that this person is my partner. It's not just a fling, or it's not just a side thing, but this is the partner. Emotionally bonded, limerent affairs. Most of them, I believe it's 60 to 75%. I have a statistic on that from my data somewhere over here, and it is above 60, but I think it might be below 75. So it's probably around 70. And that's not all affairs. That's just that major type that most of us are dealing with. So what I say when I look at your situation is, yeah, he might not ever have an affair. We see some that don't, or that they don't have a physical affair, but they are emotionally attached to somebody. What many of us find out is that there already was an affair. It was already physical, or it was already emotional, or it was an emotional affair that was planned. There was an intention of it to be an affair that was physical. So in my case, my husband, Chuck, the affair, you could technically call it emotional because it wasn't physical, but it wasn't physical. It was an intention for it to be physical. We're just waiting until we're just waiting until I'm out of the house type of thing. And once it became physical, they didn't need to do any of that waiting type of thing. It changed the whole dynamics. But at the beginning, it was, well, let's wait till you leave your wife. So that was some of the emotional affairs you see. The couple in it don't realize that they are in an emotional affair, that they have taken what is supposed to be sacred with their spouse, their intimate thoughts and feelings and their fears and their critiques, their complaints, things that you need to be going over with your spouse or with a private party that is safe for the marriage, such as a counselor or minister, and they're using this other person. And that is affair territory. We think that other person is safe because they're our friend. We think they're safe because they're married. Maybe we think they're safe because they're gay. And even then, it might not be a situation where they go into a physical affair, but we can have friends who are strong enough of an alienating force. And I have seen it occasionally. So, emotional affairs, there's those two kinds. Not really, one will transition to the other. But with my husband, it wasn't like I'm confiding in her and she's my friend. It was, we are planning to be together. And he was quite upfront about that when he said it. He was leaving me so he could be with her. Now, he didn't say that at bomb drop. He said it when he revealed that there was someone else about 2 weeks after bomb drop. So for 2 weeks, I didn't know there was anyone. Right now, you don't know whether there is somebody or not, and you're assuming there's not. And oftentimes, there's not, and we're correct. Oftentimes, there's not, and we're really not correct at all. So what I want you to know is MLCers have affairs. And I'm not going to promise that your husband is going to have an affair, but I want you to recognize the statistical reality, and I want you to try to avoid saying, well, my husband wouldn't do that, because most of us said that same thing and we were wrong. Some of us knew, there's a vulnerability in my spouse. Not that I, don't trust him. But some of us know we have complete faith that our spouse would never do that. My spouse is better than that. And people who are better have affairs because it's not about their character. It's about bad behavior and about a crisis. So I don't want to go demonize somebody because they have a sin that might be so much greater and feel more painful to the victims of it than others. Okay? He is an escape and avoid. You're not going to see a faster outcome because he is not having an affair. And it is so early on. We have plenty of people that their spouse wasn't in an affair at this point after 6 weeks after bomb drop. Some of them were leaving so they could find somebody else. Some of them were leaving, I'm not going to find somebody else. They're going to find somebody else. Some of them, they had that intention. Some of them didn't, or it wasn't a conscious intention. But since they're looking for something outside of themselves to fulfill them, that idea that comes with an affair, or not the idea, but the chemicals that happen with limerence are not just an attractive, but they are an entrapping force. They catch you by surprise and they don't let go. So you might have an MLCer who really, they mean it. I'm not going to leave for somebody, and I don't plan on giving. Of course, I'm not getting anyone. They're too vulnerable to what the chemicals of limerence can do for them. Okay, let's move on. We have number 2. An anonymous female left behind spouse. Bomb drop was April of 2019, and a date of marriage of 2006. She has a clinging boomerang and a high energy replayer. She says, my ex-husband is back home and he's been since November 2021 after the breakup with OW2. So for about 8 weeks, he was with the alienator number 2 for about 9 months, and he lived abroad with her. She stayed there and he came back. He peeked out of the tunnel for about 8 weeks in total. Since half of October, he reconnected with me and the kids. Many times we were intimate, although he slept in the spare room. He did say we would never be a couple anymore, but he loves me a lot. He's very honest about what happened the past years, huge awareness of the past traumas. He said all the right things about working on himself, reading into how to do the work, but he's having a relapse for the past 2 weeks. He's preparing to leave again, and he wants the second alienator back. Do I set boundaries or simply let him go? I feel he has made a lot of progress, but he's just not ready. And I think he felt the same about Chuck when he left the last time. It simply feels different this time. Well, detached, although more difficult when he's home, of course. Okay, so how did I feel about Chuck when he came the last time? When he left the last time, and one of the things I felt is I felt that maybe for a few times it would have worked, actually, if we had had the one main proper boundary. And when I say this, I'm not giving advice to all this has to be your boundary. This is a very good boundary to have. But I believe that each of us has a certain axis upon which our situation turns. Some issue that has to be resolved that is specific to us. And it might be a very important general issue as well. But our issue was bed hopping. He came home so many times. And most of your spouses don't come home 8 times. So I hadn't set a boundary, and I wasn't setting this proper boundary. And a lot of your spouses will get their own apartment, and mine wouldn't. There was a wall. There are some things you just can't get them to do. And I don't use credit cards. I had called around, and I was going to take out a 6-month credit card, pay for 6 months of an apartment for him on it. I wasn't probably going to tell him I got a credit card for it, and then pay as much as I could, and then say, okay, you're responsible for 6 of this, but I'm going to get you started, because he didn't go MSE on his finances, and he's so crazy on budgets. He's like, I'm not going to waste that kind of money, but we didn't have to do that. But that was our crux: is how do I get him out of her house and away from her when he wants to be, and he wants to be here with me, and he wants to be in a marriage, but this one boundary, this revolving door. If he knows he can just waltz back in, then it doesn't work for him. He's not learning the lesson. He's not getting it. He can just do whatever he wants, and he can waltz back out as well. He keeps himself vulnerable to her. He keeps himself susceptible. He doesn't do his work. I need to find a way to get this boundary to work. And what happened was, my grandma almost died in my arms on Thanksgiving morning while I was visiting. When I went home for Thanksgiving, and I realized my mom can't do this alone. And I said, okay, he can come home, but I won't be there, because it wasn't about the house. It was about us together. So I left and said, and it was more like any couple who one of them has to go away to take care of an ailing parent. And that's what he was able to tell work. So he got to save face a little bit and say, yeah, she's just, and it really was like that. I came home every other weekend and extended my stays throughout the about 9 months where I was out of the house. And we started counseling partway through that. He started with the counselor before. So on my returns home, we went to see a counselor for quite a while. And I felt that he was ready, and he would have been ready if we could have had that in place on one of those other returns. Not the early returns, but maybe I let him come home a little too early. He was home for a year. If I'd done it for that 1 year, maybe, but we were only 2.5 years in, so that was pretty early. But after a year, I kicked him out, and then he came back one more time and then left one more time before the real one. So there's that one time. If I could have gotten it to work, if I'd had something set up, and I was desperate to get something that could work. So that is my situation. I felt that if we had the right structure. Your situation, no, he's not ready. And does that mean he could be or not? I don't know what your axis on that piece is. Do you set boundaries or simply let him go? It's not one or the other. So the question I would ask is, why would you not set a boundary about something? Yeah, you let him go, and the boundary is, you're not allowed to contact me until you chose. And basically, I'm not going to phrase it this way with him, but basically for you, he's not allowed to contact you other than emergencies, true emergencies. He's having a heart attack. I hope he contacts you. He's not allowed to contact you until he chooses you. You could say it that way, but it's the phrasing I use is, until you choose to be, you may contact me when you choose to be an appropriate spouse. And if he needs to know, that means, yes, that does mean getting rid of her completely. She is not in your life. You will have no contact with her or with any of the circle of you could say circle of influence, but it's usually a circle of friends that are with her. So if he had a whole new set of friends that were only his friends with her, such as her family, he has to cut ties with all of those. So with Chuck, I think she was very close with her family, and so he was, as I understood it, her dad lived 3 houses. Her parents lived 3 houses away from her, right down the street, and they owned her house. So, and from everything I could understand, they were perfectly lovely people, but he had to cut ties with them. And he wasn't going to be contacting them outside of it anyway. I don't think he would have been comfortable, but yeah, got to cut ties with all of those, because that will be another avenue to her. It will be another avenue to continuing guilt as well. Or what if they're trying to persuade, you just need to come back. She's doing a horrible time without her. She needs you. Those sort of things. Okay. So yes, you set the boundary. The big boundary I want is that no contact one. And when you let him go, when he goes, you look very sad. You don't look sad for you like when somebody dies and you're sad here, inside here. You're sad for him out there. You are feeling sorry. And I don't mean in the pity way, but you're just sad for the choice he's made. And so there's an empathy and a concern and a caring that I want to show physically in your face and in your body language. And even if you were doing this on the phone, although I hope it could be more in person, I want you to exude it while you're doing it, because it can come through in your voice or even in your texts. I want you to be feeling this so that you're trying to communicate that to him non-verbally. So, I am so sorry that you're making this choice. You don't go, you're going to regret it. This is your choice, and you know the consequences for it. You know where a real relationship is, and you know where an illegitimate one is, and you're not going to get my blessing for heading off. But I'm not going to give up on you. I'm here. I am not going to be waiting, and I do not want to hear from you at all. You are allowed to contact me when you choose to be an appropriate spouse, and you'll get there. I want you to show, I don't want anger. I want it just to be love. Okay, I'm going to take a minute to read these. Half an hour earlier would be great for the Netherlands. Yeah, it probably would be good for you. Yeah, I'm thinking of half an hour earlier for Chuck, who doesn't like it when it gets so close to dinner and I'm rushing off in multiple places and trying to get the kids at the same time. So, and I think it'll just be easier. I'm trying to, other than coaching, I am trying to end my day before 4 o'clock. So, okay, I am going to move on to number 3. Okay, so we have an anonymous female left behind spouse. Bomb drop was June of 2017. And date of marriage is 1992. She has a clinging boomerang and a high energy replayer. And okay, so I'm going to, there is an aging father in the situation, but he is fine. The MLCer is very concerned about, I need to take care of my father. I'm very worried about my dad. Something could happen. Dad's fine. Dad is fully independent. Dad doesn't have a need. So this is being used as an avoidance tactic. Okay, so that sets some of the context that we're going on right there. We continue to see each other weekly, and sometimes we see each other more often, depending on the things that come up with our adult children. We've been physically intimate on a continued steady basis since the divorce. Example, divorce on Friday, sex on Sunday. Our adult children know we continue to have a very loving relationship with one another. My ex may know where all of this is going, but the rest of us are in the dark. He probably doesn't know what's going either. My question is, what part of his adult children, knowing we're in a physical relationship, plays on his we're in a physical relationship, play on his reality and his efforts in reconciliation. He's on the treadmill and must take care of his father, and I support that. It's good to be supportive of it, and I know we've talked about, we know that it's an avoidance. It's just an acknowledging and understanding the reality of it too. Sorry, I'm refreshing because I cannot see myself. Like, there I am. Okay. Okay. I've tried to talk with him, but I can tell his father's situation with his family is really wearing on him. So I decided to just enjoy him and our time together and let the details take care of themselves. He knows my desires because I've told him when I can. You know, that might be the best thing to do at this point. There is going to be a point, and there are probably some people who would be not satisfied but willing to go with this for the long term. And maybe you aren't going to be one of those. I wouldn't blame you for that one. But there are probably some people who could go, yeah, you know, this is just the life we have now. We have separate places, but we're together. I mean, for instance, my mom, and this is not a marital situation, but I love my mom. I don't think she should be married. I think that she needs to live independently, and if she can have somebody who is her boyfriend, it's always weird to say boyfriend when you're in your 70s, isn't it? And they get together when they do, they can travel when they do, but they would have their separate lives in their separate places, or you can have very intertwined lives, but each have your own home. I think that's, for my mom, a situation that's good. There are married couples that prefer that. So we could do that. The hard part is when you don't really know what that means to the other person. What is the commitment within it? Because you don't have a vocalized commitment with this. And that's where it's really up in the air. And that's what he's not ready for. So how long do you sit there and wait for that sort of thing? And at what point do you bring it up? You need to find your threshold for that. Where is your tether where it's fraying on me? Because I don't have the stability, because I don't ever know. And I need it from you. I need to know, are we going to live this life? And because I can, or because I can't, or I won't, if it's not going to change. And if we're not moving toward full commitment, I don't want to, we need to find a way to separate it. Or if it's not moving toward full commitment and living together, and you need to communicate that with him, but on your time and his time. So if he's not ready for it, but you have to have it, then it doesn't matter whether he's ready for it or not. You have to, it's shit or get off the pot. And then that's, I don't like the word ultimatum, but in your head, even if you don't phrase it as an ultimatum, it is. It's, if you don't choose me now, I need to move forward away from you. And maybe you're not there yet. I like how you are like, you can just decide to enjoy him for now. I like that. If you can do it with an MLCer, then yeah, do it. It has been 4.5 years. It's a long time, but it's not a long time in MLC. I would rather, if I were to, and I don't like to give these timelines, but I want somebody in MLC who is standing. If you're standing and you want to say, well, what should I give this? And, you know, when do I need to know where it's really just not going to change? Go 6, because we know that MLC lasts 3 to upwards of 7. You can go 7, but I was like, ugh. You know, think at 6. And I'm not saying change it at 6. I'm saying I would really like you to put that in till that long. And if you can withstand it, 7 is, it probably sound insane, because Chuck was only out for 3.5. And he wasn't out, he was in and out, but it lasted 3.5. It was a short MLC. So you have to figure out what you can do. But if you are content or capable, enjoy him for now. Enjoy what you have. This is what, you're where I want people who are a few years behind you to learn to be, not where you are now. I'd rather it be resolving itself. And this is part of reconnection. This is how it does often resolve itself. This is where we get into the times of, okay, we're reconnecting. Are we reconciling? Well, I know we're reconnecting. I mean, he's here. I think we might be monogamous. We're intimate. Everything seems great there. Our kids can even know we're together, but that is reconnecting. But how long do you stay on the reconnecting train before you jump to the reconciliation train? Because touch and goes, then reconnections, then reconciliation. Reconciliation is when you have both communicated and you know we are doing this. We are working on our marriage. We are healing. And with the intention of being together. Two people. You don't save your marriage alone at that point. You prevent it from being destroyed alone. That's you've put your marriage in the box. But when it comes to actually healing, fixing, saving your marriage, it does take two. And so that's the reconciliation point. You're at the reconnection. Are you at the reconciliation or not? If he hasn't communicated that with you, he might be in his head. Like you said, he might know where it's going. The thing is, if he really, really knows where it's going, that would be a communication to you. He knows where he wants it to be going, but he's just not sure yet. There is going to be a time where he probably needs a push. Figure out where that is. Okay. Let me see the time, 3:31. We got 15 minutes. We will move on to number 4. This time we have an anonymous male left behind spouse. Bomb drop was June of 2021, just last year. Date of marriage is 2004. He has a boomerang and a low energy wallower. He says, my wife bomb dropped in June after I saw a message on her phone. She left a few months later saying, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. She claims she blocked the alienator, but she has since regained contact with him, and she now admits to dating him. I don't know if she admits that she's dating him now or she is admitting that she was, but at least we're going with the now. She has made numerous comments recently like, I want to vanish and hide from the world. I'm a failure as a parent. I just want to stop breathing. I miss you. I will always have love for you. It appears she hasn't dealt with her issues and is trying to use him to find her happiness. And he wrote that as a question. It appears she has dealt with her issues and is trying to use him to find happiness. Yes. That's it. Because this is everything you've put in there, all of her words, MLC script, especially for somebody who's a lower energy wallower, like you said. Also, women are more common to be low energy than men. That doesn't mean they're more low energy women than of the women, but they're more likely than men to be. I want to stop breathing. Women are more likely to use that phrase than men. Wanting to vanish, failure as a parent. So, and what stage is she in? Remember what I said with the first person? She is in escape and avoid. You just had your bomb drop. When do we start measuring? We start measuring at bomb drop. That doesn't mean MLC started then, but that starts the clock. That starts them realizing I can grasp for the freedom because I have communicated the problem to my spouse. The problem might be I hate you, or I hate you, but I love you, but I'm not in love with you, and I feel all these things, or I'm leaving you, whatever. The problem that there is a serious problem in your marriage has been communicated. Now, you might get trickled more truths and all sorts of things, but we found out about something and that they want out probably. There's been a lot of replay early on, but now it seems to be the depths of depression. And that's what I mean when I say MLC's depression. I get a lot of people who say, well, but now they're depressed. That's because it's midlife crisis. And all of midlife crisis is depression. And you said something important, replay early on. And remember what I said before is replay is high energy. Replay is escape and avoid. I mean, escape, a high energy replayer is a type of escape and avoid where they have the high energy. A low energy wallower is the type of escape and avoid where we don't see all of these do-over behaviors. Replay behaviors are high energy. You might see more overt anger. More of an affair, more of a party, a bachelor. I call it the bachelor, or the frat boy lifestyle, the bachelor party life. So partying, perhaps more avoidance into substance abuse, or at least they're not a solo drinker where they drink in the closet alone. It's covert depression or mask depression, or often even called male pattern depression. We see women with it, but that is what we think of as more, when we think of depression, we think of women and going inward, and men often express outward. But we don't recognize the outward as depression. And it's a lot more fun to have the high energy replayer lifestyle. It's a party life because they're avoiding the one who is overtly or openly depressed isn't able to hide their depression. They are not able to avoid feeling terrible about themselves. Well, isn't it a lot more fun? The stuff that you do to avoid it is more fun. That's why we're doing it, to avoid it. We go out and party, we drink, we have an affair. The high addictive hormones, the limerence that comes with the affair, much more successful at getting us to feel, to maintain an avoidance. Now, just because they're maintaining an avoidance doesn't mean they go through faster or slower. Okay, it's just a different way of going through it. But many low energy wallowers start out they don't start out as high energy replayers. They try it and they fail at it, because who wouldn't want to try to avoid all of that pain and agony? But they just fail at it. Maybe it's because they didn't find an affair, or they didn't find an affair that took. They just, well, they tried that, but the feelings for that person never came. They thought it was working, but she was just so horrible that she scorched earth, that, with the massive control it didn't take with them, that an alien had tried to put on them, for whatever reasons. And they go into low energy wallow. So you were thinking that she was, if you had tried to tell me what she was in, maybe in right after she left home, let's say, and you didn't say how long, you said a few months later. So in September of last year, you might have thought she was a high energy replayer, and she might not have been. She might have been a low energy wallower. But this is why I say in the first few months, we really can't state as a full diagnosis. I don't like that word, but because it's too clinical, it's not real. But we can't really state whether they are high energy replayer or a low energy wallower. Same thing with clinging boomerangs versus boomerang versus vanisher, all of those, because they haven't settled into their crisis yet. Give them a few months to find out if their high energy replay antics are going to hold, or if they're going to fail at them. And then we can say, okay, you pretty much have a low energy wallower. You pretty much have a clinging boomerang. And the same thing goes for those who are at home. At home, I can often tell if they're going to be a clinging boomerang. But the others, if they're at home, are they going to be a vanisher if they leave, or a boomerang? We can't always tell. We can statistically look at it. I'll tell you that women are more likely to be vanishers than men if they leave. Okay, so I'm going to look at, when does MLC start on bomb drop or before? It starts before bomb drop. But let's call those the roots of midlife crisis. When you notice it, really, and you might notice in hindsight, and some of us, not most of us, but some of us recognize something's going on. But oftentimes we think something's going on, but it's like, well, of course he's depressed. His dad just died. Of course he's depressed, or of course things are hectic because there's stuff going on at work. There are reasons, not just excuses, but reasons for these changes, because those are what trigger this midlife crisis. And those are the roots. But we notice it at bomb drop, and we start the clock then because of that freedom. So I think of it as, we're at a train, we're going to board the train, but we're either sitting on the train, or it hasn't started moving, or we're in the train station, the ante room. And so we've entered the midlife crisis as soon as you enter that building, but you're not moving forward. The time doesn't get a start until it moves forward, and that is bomb drop. Bomb drop starts the engine. Okay, let's see. Let's do one more, okay? We have Nick, bomb drop, left behind. Let's see, bomb drop was February of 2020. Date of marriage is 2011. He has a high energy replayer and a boomerang. He says, my wife and I agreed to a divorce last week. I saw her a couple of days afterwards and told her I was putting down adultery as we agreed before, and that I would need the alienator's address as he gets a copy of it. She replied with, you're a cheat, seeing another woman, so don't give me grief. Almost crying. I did briefly see someone, but nothing serious. And more friends, so maybe she found out. But why be bothered? This is her choice, and she's still with him and pushing for a divorce. So there are a few questions in there. The first thing is, maybe she didn't find out. Maybe she's referring to something else. Okay. Maybe she's just trying to get you, or maybe she knew you went on a date. But with the anger behind it, I do wonder, and this is what I think. I have a lot of different things that it could be. In other words, one of the things I wonder is, did she think you were cheating and not say it before? She has a suspicion that you had an affair, and maybe in the past. And so she's accusing you of that. Or maybe she's just accusing you. Maybe she did find out that you went out on a date. And right now, she's just using it as an excuse. First thing, she's not going to look good in the divorce. So if she can throw it back at you, it's tit for tat. And so one cancels out the other. So she's trying to get you not to accuse her of adultery in the divorce papers, for one. And the bigger she makes herself, the more angry she makes herself, the bigger a storm, the bigger a puffer fish she becomes, the more likely she's to scare you off of that, is the idea. She just like a peacock spreading out her feathers. She's trying to make herself bigger, more scarier, to intimidate you. That's one thing. Why is she bothered? Well, one reason is simply she's putting on an act for the intimidation. And she might be trying to intimidate you, but still being bothered. She's bothered because she does care. Okay? They're bothered. They're cycling with their choices. They're uncertain. They are certain. They're feeling the guilt and shame of them. She feels that if she can project it onto you, maybe it'll alleviate some of her guilt and shame. Well, it's not a big deal. He did it too. It's not a big deal. It's not like it's bothering him. He's moved on. He went on a date. It's her choice, and she's pushing for the divorce. Yeah. But that doesn't mean they want us to move on. Also, with some, it's, well, if you are moving on, and if you're dating somebody, where's my security blanket if this fails? I can't go back to somebody now. I don't have something to return to if I fail at what I'm doing. There's no security, and I want that person there waiting for me. I need somebody to catch me because I think I'm falling. And so that scares them as well. So you've got several things that might be going on. All of them could be going on. Only a few might be going on. But I hope that helps you to at least understand why she's going to get upset. I think a big part of it, though, is she just doesn't want you to put that in the divorce papers. Why would anybody want that? So if she can get you to not do it, yeah, she's going to stop you from doing it. Okay. So we're at 3:43 on my camera, my clock here. I'm going to get ready so that I can go get to the bus. And let me check. And I will get to a few of these if I can, either next week or if I can put them out midweek as well. And thanks, everybody. I will see you next week. Bye-bye. Oops.